Edogawa Rampo, The Diary. It was just the 7th night after my younger brother's death. I went into my brother's study and took out his writings and other things he had left behind. It was not long after midnight, and the house was still and silent, filled with tears. Moreover, although it was somewhat theatrical, the calls of peddlers were echoing from far away in a sad tone. I suddenly felt a long-forgotten, familiar feeling I had felt when I was a child, and I opened up my brother's diary. When I look at this journal, I cannot help but feel sorry for my 20-year-old brother who passed away, probably without ever having known love. A shy boy with few friends, he spent most of his time in his study. His diary, written meticulously with a fine pen, gives us a glimpse of his nature. In his diary, he writes with childish but sincere sentences about doubts about life, anguish over faith, and the other troubles of adolescence that anyone his age would experience. I turned the pages one by one with a mind like looking at my own past. Everywhere on those pages, from the depths of the writing, I could see my brother's timid, dove-like eyes staring back at me. And when I reached the March 9th page, something caught my attention so much that I was so deeply moved that I let out a light yell. It was the first time I saw the name of a flamboyant woman appear in the pure and innocent diary entries. In the place where it was printed, sent column, was written Yuki Kitagawa, a beautiful young woman whom I knew well and who was a distant relative of ours. So my brother might have been in love with her. I suddenly had such a feeling. So with a kind of faint shiver in my heart, I continued to read on. But contrary to my wildest expectations, Yuki did not appear in the body of the diary at all. The next day I found Yuki Kitagawa in the inbox, and after a few days Yuki's name appeared in both the inbox and outbox. The outgoing correspondence was sent from March 9th to May 21st, and the incoming correspondence started around the same time and continued until May 17th, a short period of less than 3 months. In fact, not once did Yuki's name appear on the last page of the book, which was his last page of writing. In fact, there were only 8 correspondences from his side and 10 from hers, and since both his and hers were labeled postcards, it is hard to imagine that there was any kind of language in them that would make them objectionable to other people. And from the overall tone of the diary, it does not seem likely that he intentionally left out something more than that, when in fact there was more to the story. I closed the diary, feeling neither relieved nor disappointed. I felt sad and wondered if my brother had died without ever having known love. I looked up at the top of the desk and noticed my brother's wooden box for documents, which he loved very much. I wondered if there might be something hidden in this old-fashioned box for documents, in which he had apparently stored his most prized possessions during his lifetime, that would soothe my dreary heart. Out of such curiosity, I casually opened the box for documents and looked at it. Inside were various documents and other things unrelated to this story, but from the very bottom of the stack, I found a white paper wrapped in a white paper, as if it had been carefully wrapped. At the bottom of the stack, I found 11 postcards wrapped in white paper, which had been sent to him by Ms. Yuki. If they were not sent by his lover, who would have kept them so carefully at the bottom of his pocketbook? With a sudden feeling of excitement, I examined the 11 postcards one after the other. My hands were even shaking unnaturally as I held the postcards in my hands. But what happened? There was not the slightest hint of a love note on any of these postcards, or between any of the lines of their text. Then did my brother, out of his timid nature, not even confide in me what was on his mind, but just kept these few meaningless postcards sent by his sweetheart as if they were a good luck charm and kept them as a precious possession, as if they were the least he could do. And finally, did she pass away with unrequited feelings? As I looked at the postcard from Ms. Yuki, I was filled with various thoughts, one after another. But why was this? Eventually, I realized what was going on. My brother's diary only lists 10 times that he received postcards from Yuki. But here we are now, 11 postcards. The last one is dated May 25. As I recall, there was no Yuki's name in the receiving column in his diary for that day. So I picked up my diary again and couldn't help opening the May 25 entry. I realized that I had overlooked something terrible. The receipt column for that day was indeed left blank, but in the body of the letter, I found the following sentence. In response to my last postcard, I would like to thank you for your kind attention to my postcard. I received a postcard from Y. In response to my last postcard, I was disappointed. I was too timid. Now I can't get it back. Ah, you must be Ms. Yuki's initial. No one else I knew had the same initial. But what does this phrase mean? According to the diary, he just wrote a postcard to Ms. Yuki. There is no way he would write a love letter in a sealed envelope. Then, did he ever send a sealed letter, which is not mentioned in this diary? And did he receive this meaningless postcard as a reply? I can see that he and Yuki have stopped correspondence since then, so that could be the case. However, the text of the last postcard from Ms. Yuki is too strange, even if it is meant as a rejection of her. This is because the text contains nothing more than a letter of condolence to my brother who was sick on his bed. And if the brother, who had so earnestly written down his outgoing and incoming messages, had sent a sealed envelope in addition to the 8 postcards, there is no way that he would not have written it down. Then, what does this phrase, disappointed, mean? When I think about it in this way, there seems to be a secret that does not add up and cannot be interpreted only from the facts that appear on the surface. This may have been a mystery left behind by my late brother, and should have been quietly left as it was. However, for whatever reason, when I encounter even the slightest suspicious fact, I have a tendency to be like a detective going through the aftermath of a crime, unable to resist the urge to find out the truth of it. Moreover, in this case, my innate detective instincts kicked in even more strongly, not only because of the circumstance that the mystery could not be solved by my brother's explanation, but also because it had a lot to do with my own personal life. I became absorbed in solving the mystery, as if I had already forgotten how much I regretted my brother's death. I repeatedly read the diary. I searched through all of my brother's other writings. However, I could not find any record of his love life. Come to think of it, my brother was not only extremely bashful, but also extremely cautious, so no matter how much I searched, there was no way I could find anything like that. But I lost myself in solving this seemingly insurmountable riddle. It was a long time. Eventually, after all sorts of futile efforts, I became suspicious of the date of my brother's postcard. According to the diary entries, the sequence was as follows: March 9, 12th, 15th, and 22nd, April 5, 25th, May 15, 21st. These dates are against the psychology of those who are in love, and it seems strange that correspondence to someone in love, even if it is not a love letter, is becoming more and more difficult the later it is sent. When I compare this with the date of the postcard from Ms. Yuki, the strangeness is even more striking. March 10, 13th, 17th, 23rd, April 6, 14th, 18th, and 26th, May 3, 17th, 25th. Looking at this, I can see that in addition to replying to each of my brother's postcards, Yuki responded to my brother's postcards at least 3 times on the 14th, 18th, and 3rd of May. She actively corresponded with him, but if my brother was in love with her, why did he neglect to respond to these 3 correspondences? According to the diary, he was not traveling at the time, nor was he ill to the point of not being able to write. Another thing is that Yuki's frequent, albeit nonsensical, correspondence with the young man is not at all strange, but it is not inconceivable. But why, I wondered, did they cease their correspondence after May 25th, as if they had reached an impasse? Looking at the date of my brother's postcard, there seems to be a meaning to it. Perhaps he wrote a coded love note, and the date on the postcard could form the code. This is not too far-fetched, given my brother's penchant for secrecy. So I tried one by one to figure out if the date numbers were ABC or Iweo of the Japanese alphabet, or if they indicated the order of the letters of the alphabet. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had some experience in cryptanalysis. How about this? The 9th day of March is I, the 9th letter of the alphabet, and the 12th day is L, the 12th letter of the alphabet. If I apply it in that way, these 8 dates can be interpreted as I love you. What a childish and at the same time patient love letter. He spent a full 3 months to say just one word, I love you. It's an unbelievable story. But, knowing my brother's special nature, I could never have thought that this was a coincidence.
Once I make that assumption, it all becomes clear. I know what disappointment means. While he had sent the postcard that corresponded to the last letter U, Yuki had sent the same meaningless postcard.
Moreover, it was right around the time when my brother was diagnosed with the dreaded disease by the doctor. The poor man was no longer motivated to write another love letter because of this double blow, and he died with a sad feeling that he had never confided in anyone, not even his own lover, who had confided in him but had not been able to communicate his feelings to her. I was overcome with a dark feeling that I did not know how to explain, and I sat there and did not get up. Then I casually stared at the postcards from Miss Yuki in front of me, which my brother had hidden deep in the bottom of his box for documents. And then, oh, what a surprising fact. Let my idle curiosity be damned. I would have been much better off not knowing the whole story. On the front of these postcards from Ms. Yuki, there was a postage stamp, without exception, written in beautiful letters, aligned diagonally next to my brother's address. It was placed neatly and neatly, as if it could only be done on purpose. It was not an accidental mistake. I think it was a long time ago, maybe when I was in elementary school. From that time on, I was a curious man, so I used to read in one of the literary magazines about the method of secret communication by the way of stamps. Among them, I have never forgotten the part about how you can show your love by placing a postage stamp diagonally, which I actually tried to apply once. This method became popular among young men and women of the time and was quite popular. However, just around the time of the correspondence between Yuki and my brother, a novel titled Two People's Aizaburo Aoki by Koji Uno was published, in which this method was described in detail. Both my brother and Yuki must have been familiar with this method, since it was a hot topic of conversation among us at the time. So why was it that my brother, who knew the method, was unable to realize her feelings, even though she had been repeating the same thing for 3 months, until he was finally disappointed? I do not know that point either. Perhaps he had forgotten, or maybe he was so excited that he did not notice the stamps. In any case, it is certain that he was unaware of it as long as he wrote disappointment. But still, I wonder if such an old-fashioned love is possible in this day and age. If I am not mistaken, they were in love with each other, and they even appealed to each other for their love. But neither of them knew the other's heart in the slightest, and one of them had to leave this world with a painful heartache, and the other with a sad, broken heart for the rest of her life. It was too much of a cowardly love. Yuki was a young woman, so it was understandable, but my brother's actions were more despicable than cowardice. That said, I do not blame my late brother's methods in the slightest. On the contrary, I find this peculiar habit of his to be one of the most endearing things in the world. He was naturally very bashful and timid, and yet he had a very strong self-esteem. For a man of my brother's character, it is a pain so terrible that no ordinary man can even conceive of it. As his older brother, I understand it well.
How hard he must have worked to prevent the shame of this rejection. It is impossible not to confide in love. But if he confide in someone and they reject him, that shame, that awkwardness, will last forever and ever while they are alive in this world. He wondered if there was some way he could get through to them, that if she rejected him, it was not a love letter. He must have thought so. In the old days, the Omiya people tried to ease the pain of outright rejection through the artful use of love poem, which could be taken either way. In his case, it is just that. Unfortunately, his too deep precautions led to such an arcane message. But how could he have been so insensitive in deciphering his opponent's cipher, when he was so meticulous in coming up with his own? There are many cases in the world of people who make terrible mistakes because they are too conceited, but this is another tragedy due to lack of conceit. What a pity. Oh, I came into contact with an irreversible truth because I started reading my brother's diary. What words can I use to describe how I felt at that moment? If it had been just a matter of grieving over the sorry failure of two young people, it would have been fine. But I had another, more selfish emotion, and it was this emotion that stirred me to madness. I wore garden clogs and stumbled down to the garden to let the icy wind of the winter night blow my heated head. And then, with my mind still in turmoil, I walked endlessly in circles among the trees, thinking about the irrevocable engagement between Yuki and me, which had been arranged only 2 months before my brother's death.
Let me explain a little about the last part. 100 years ago in Japan, engagement was often decided based on the ideas of the parents, regardless of the romantic feelings between the people involved. What did you think of this piece, the diary? Please let us know what you think in the comments section. This channel features readings of works by Edogawa Rampo and others. If you would like to subscribe to our channel and give us a high rating, I will be happy. See you in the next video.